Before we arrived in Sagada, I had no idea of what to expect and what we would need to film. After a meeting with the local tourism office, it was suggested that we filmed a sunrise. The next morning we got up at 4 AM to get to the vantage point, but as you can see, it wasn't the most successful start to the day. Not to worry, I thought, we've got plenty of time here, surely one morning will be good. We had been filming in Banawi the week before, and although both places are high up in the mountains of North Luzon, Sagada is completely different. Pine forests cover the mountainsides. In fact, there are no palm or coconut trees to be seen at all anywhere. This is like nothing else I've seen in the Philippines. As always in the Philippines, you are never too far away from people using ingenious ideas to overcome a problem. I love how this old truck has been used to power a winch for the nearby gold mine. After a while, it dawns on me how few people are here. This is the big falls at bomod-ok, and when you consider this is Holy Week, and Sagada town itself is absolutely brimming full of people, there are very few people that come out to experience this absolutely incredible scenery. This area is called Namagan. It used to be nicknamed Marlborough Country because domesticated horses used to roam here. Sadly, the horses are no more, as the last one apparently ended up in a cooking pot. I was trying to get a shot of the scenery with my mate Wolfie's dogs in the foreground, but Mona here wasn't being very helpful. What do they say about working with animals? With stunning scenery and beautiful weather, there's only one thing for a videographer to do, and that's time-lapse. As we while away the time as the camera does its thing, I go back to my original thoughts of why don't more people come here? After all, there's history, culture, great organic foods, the locals are friendly and helpful, there's loads of activities to do, and the scenery is absolutely breathtaking. And then I answer my own question. I don't want more people here. Let's just keep it as our little secret. As luck would have it, we got our sunrise the very next day. In March and May, we arranged to stay at Club Paradise on the island of Damakia in northern Coron. The purpose of the trip was all about trying to capture on film dugongs, or sea cows. Siobhan and I had not been here before, but talking to our friends beforehand, we'd heard it was a very well put together resort with excellent staff. After a short while of being on the island, you soon start to realise this is more than just a resort on a tropical island with a white sand beach. It feels like a nature reserve. Actual trees, not the environmentally disastrous coconut, cover the island. All kinds of birds fly around you, butterflies galore. Monitor lizards cool off and have a good old scratch in the lagoon. But the most impressive wildlife are these little fellas. Fruit bats, and thousands upon thousands of them. They form huge congregations as they rest by hanging upside down in the trees during the day. The wings are not only essential for flight, but also as a sun shield and as a fan to keep themselves cool during the day. It's at twilight when you get the full impression of how big the population is, as they initially take off from the trees and start their migration back to the mainland in search of food. This extraordinary daily migration adds a whole new dimension to beer o'clock on the beach at Club Paradise, especially when you have a sunset like this. Continuing at Club Paradise in Coron, we went on a day trip to dive the Tara Islands, which are about an hour-and-a-half boat ride from Damakia. It was the most beautiful of days. Sunny blue skies, glass-like sea, perfect. And to make a perfect day even better, a pod of dolphins came to say hello. I've been very fortunate to have seen a lot of dolphins across the Philippines, but today was different. This pod seemed very curious and stayed playing in the bow wave for ages before breaking off and continuing with their daily journey. Eventually they break off, but Siobhan gets excited again as the boat captain brings the boat around and intercepts the dolphins, and once again they come to play in the bow wave. This time the dolphins are with us for at least 5 minutes before breaking off. The captain once again follows them, and once again they return to play with us. It's at this point I'm having silly thoughts. I've only ever seen dolphins underwater once in Truck Lagoon, and I'm desperately thinking of how I can convince the boat crew and the paying customers that we should forget about diving on Tara Islands and give it a go with the dolphins. Sadly, I get outvoted. Never mind, my day will come one day. Aside from Alona Beach and diving, Bohol is one of the more organised islands in the Philippines when it comes to tourist attractions. A cruise on the River Lobok is a firm favourite with local tourists and has everything required for a great day out, which is food and music. You're never far from a church in the Philippines, and the Pag Laaban church, at nearly 300 years old, is one of the oldest. I can't help wondering though how much reef was destroyed in the excavation of the coral rock used in its construction. Anyway, did you know there are 6 main differences between moths and butterflies? Well, you'll be able to find out what they are if you go to the Simply Butterflies Conservation in Bilar, or Google it. For us, the top place to go is the rather brilliantly run official Tarsu Sanctuary in Kerala. Unlike the shabby and cruel unofficial places where tarsiers are kept in small cages and pens and have tourists touching and clambering all over them, here they have 8.4 hectares of protected secondary forest to roam around in. On the day we were there, 2 of the dozen or so tarsiers were visible, the others hiding out in the sanctuary somewhere. Being nocturnal feeders, the first tarsier was obviously chilling out and napping from his nightly excursions. Trying to film a bit of interesting tarsier activity, we move on to the second tarsier, which doesn't actually look any more interesting than the first one. But anyway, tarsiers are interesting creatures though. For example, they have the largest eyes of any mammal in relation to their body size, and each one of their eyes weighs more than their brain. They are the only completely carnivorous primate, and they get their name from having unusually long ankle bones known as tarsals, which enables them to jump long distances, up to 40 times their own body length. They also have incredible hearing, and this is the bit I like. They can roll their ears up and down. How cool is that? We move the camera back to the first tarsier in the hope that some activity will take place. We've been here for more than 2 hours now, and I must admit I am completely smitten by these furry balls. Of course, one other bit of info about them is that they inspired Steven Spielberg's film Gremlins, and it's easy to see why. But hold on a minute, this one's having a wash, and it's out of the camera's view. No! Turn around, please! How inconsiderate is that? You take the time to come and film them and try and promote the place, and they treat you like this. I change the camera as quickly as I can, and then blow me, he does it again. Typical. Right, time to get a bucket of water, I think. The Pag Laaban Cave. I can hear Ralph moaning already. How can the Pag Laaban Cave be only number 6 when it was last year's number 1? Because he talks like that. Well, my friend, there's 3 reasons for that. Firstly, Siobhan didn't dive here this year, and only my vote alone isn't enough to make it a number 1. Secondly, as I'd been here before, it's lost a smidgen of wow factor. And lastly, because Germany beat Team GB in the men's 8s in the rowing in the Olympics. Nobody said it was gonna be fair. Joking aside, it was fantastic to get back to the Pag Laaban Cave with Ralph on board Rags 2. Last year's dives here inspired me to work my butt off in the UK to be able to buy 4 new video lights to enable me to improve my filming of the cave. Now armed with 16,000 lumens worth of lights, it's much easier to illuminate the lighter coloured rocks in Loser's Alley. This narrow corridor has been nicknamed Loser's Alley because of the 3 separate collections of skeletal remains on the floor, from creatures that have got lost and died in here. I must admit, for the most part of the 6 dives we did, I had a big smile on my face, and my heart was racing. This is such a buzz to be here. The element of danger, the challenge of trying to capture it on film, and also the challenge of my own diving capability and techniques to enable me to do a good job. And I'll let my peers decide if I've achieved that. But foremost is to just experience such a wonderful environment. Where else can you see something like this? Even in the most pristine dry caves, you couldn't get up close to rock formations like these. I feel privileged to be able to be here, to see what very few people have seen before me, and also knowing that very few people will be able to come here in the future. We're exiting Loser's Alley now and back into the main chamber. This is where my video lights really have to work hard, as the black rock just absorbs light. Just before we head back to the entrance, we come across our other group of divers. With our lights off, it feels like a scene out of Star Wars as they do some training exercises. One of the lads has got his own video set up, and I remember thinking at this very point, while floating directly above him, maybe I should get another 2 video lights. And as it's such a long swim back to the boat, maybe I should get a scooter too. Oslob in southern Cebu has been in the headlines in the world's media since October 2011, when tourists started to flock there to see whale sharks being hand-fed by the local fishermen. It has become a very contentious issue, and I can understand both sides of the debate as to whether it is changing the habits of the whale sharks and if it should be allowed to continue. We've been here a few times, and I must admit I do still struggle with which side of the fence I sit on. However, it is not my intention for this film to fuel the debate further, so if you have strong views against what the fishermen are doing, then may I suggest you stop this film now, or fast forward by 2 minutes. Siobhan and I are experienced divers, and we've been privileged to have seen many whale sharks. But even so, every time I go to Oslob, I have to pinch myself to check it's for real. I know divers that have done 2,000 plus dives and have never seen one. Here, you can't help but see them, sometimes up to a dozen in a day. On 7th of July, we popped down to Oslob for the day. This was to be mine and Siobhan's last days diving together before we returned home to the UK. The sun was out and diving conditions were quite good, and there was probably about 6 or 7 sharks in the area. Sharks normally head to the small boats where they know they will get a small snack of krill from the fishermen. But there was this one 6 metre long male who seemed very interested in Siobhan. Whale sharks are known as the gentle giants, and I guess to an inexperienced diver or snorkeler, to have a 6, 7, 8 metre lump of fish swimming straight towards you can seem a little bit intimidating. But Siobhan is experienced enough to know that the shark is absolutely zero threat to her, and enjoys the moment. Whale sharks quite commonly head towards divers to either gulp their exhaled bubbles or to position themselves above divers so the bubbles run over their bellies, possibly to dislodge parasites, or maybe they just simply like the sensation. What is strange or unusual about his behaviour today is that sometimes he obviously is going for Siobhan's bubbles under his belly, but a number of times he's just swimming straight up to her and then gently moves away. Now, bearing in mind Siobhan is not the only one making bubbles, I'm there too, but the shark doesn't seem to come to me. Now, I'm not a jealous man, but what's going on here? Is this a bit of fish love? As Siobhan sucks her tank dry, it's time for us to go up. Good luck, Mr. Whale Shark. Have a safe journey. If you had asked me 2 years ago what I thought of technical and wreck diving, you would have got a response something like, yeah, it's alright, but it's for nerds though, isn't it? Thanks to wrecks like the Irako, my response now is considerably more positive and enthusiastic. Of the 14 diveable World War II wrecks in Quran, it is the Irako that, if you are technically qualified, is the one to dive. Over the next 4 minutes, I'm going to try and show you why the Irako is a top dive and why I get such a buzz out of diving her. The Irako was a refrigeration and supply ship to the Imperial Japanese Army. This bank of pipes and valves was the refrigeration control panel for the many huge walk-in freezers on the ship. The depth here is around 38 metres and quite a tightly confined room. It's also very silty, and just your exhaled bubbles disturb the silt. Any kicking up of your fins can almost instantly lead to a silt out, which is not good. In a full silt out situation, you literally cannot see your hand in front of your face, and you need a line to follow to get you out. This is a very complex ship with at least 4 deck levels, and it's very easy to get disorientated. We're now going to ascend to the 2nd level to find a bicycle of all things. Again, we are entering very confined areas, and it's essential to lay a line for safety. There it is. Even though it's a bit shabby looking, I reckon with a couple of new wheels, Bradley Wiggins would still be able to win the Tour de France with it. I've done quite a few dives here now, but she is so large and complex that I reckon I've seen maybe 20 or 30% of her, and that's part of her appeal. There's always more to explore, and even now there are parts of her that have never been seen by divers. Also, there's evidence all around you to show you what life must have been like for the crew. These are the remains of the toilets. No privacy here. Moving on to the transmission room, it was from here last year that Ralph showed me the machine room, complete with drill and lathe. This time he shows me the tools and spares room on the other side of the transmission room. It's an interesting little room, but to be honest, I have no idea of all the things are on the floor. Ralph, next time, can you put some labels on them please so I know what I'm looking at? Thanks. Moving on to the refrigeration rooms, there's lots of broken bottles, which leads me to believe that the Japanese were complete alcoholics and that they liked their beer really cold. To feed an army must be a monumental task, so not only does the ship store food, but it also produces it. Look at the size of these rice cookers. Now that's a lot of rice in one of them. And that is a heavy duty mixer. Now before you email me, Ralph, to complain I've put this clip in showing you kicking up the silt, it's here to demonstrate a point. This clip shows exactly why I love diving this ship. We're a good way inside the wreck, only a line to follow out if it silts up, 30 something metres down from the surface, I've got to manage my gas and my bottom time, and we're finning along a narrow passageway. This is proper adventure. Oh, and by the way, I'm carrying this as well. To be honest, I'm not sure if I'm an idiot or not bringing my camera into such an environment. One scratch on the Fathom lens means it has to be sent back to the States to be repaired, and it will cost big bucks. Oh well, I guess it just goes to show I have become a nerd myself. It's time to get our deco tanks and head back up to the boat. As usual, Mr. Jugger, it's been an absolute pleasure diving with you. Cheers, mate. If you'd like to see more of our videos, please feel free to subscribe to us on YouTube or like us on Facebook.